Shalom Aleichem, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming out again on another Monday night. Really appreciate it. Shakoch to Daniel over there for giving a beautiful Torah for MNL. Kol Kavod, as always. So Monday nights in general, coming out to learn Torah together as a group, very chashuv, very important. Always great to see you. For everyone who has to run right now after Bnei Kiva, thank you so much for coming, and we'll hopefully see you again next week as well. For everyone sticking around, so a couple of ideas, a couple of questions that I think are important to raise regarding this week's parsha and regarding the tkufa that we're currently located in. So I'll start with the first thing. The introduction to the section that deals with the Moadot, or the Moadim for that matter, with regard to the holidays, starts off in an interesting fashion. It says it's about introducing these are the Moadim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls Moadim, and the first thing it mentions is Shabbos. Which is interesting. You would not expect that now we're listening to Moadim that the first thing you say is Shabbos. What do you expect it to be? Pesach, maybe Shavuot, maybe Sukkot, depending if you're going in order or out of order. Why is Shabbos the first thing that's mentioned? I don't know, it's interesting. So Rashi also asks this question, and he brings down the following idea. Why is it specifically that Shabbos is brought down next to the Moadim, specifically to give a comparison and contrasting the Moadot and the Moadim to Shabbos? If a person keeps the Moadim, if he keeps Pesach Karaoi, if he keeps the Chagim Karaoi the way it's supposed to be kept, then what? It's as if he kept all the Shabbatot. And a person who violates the Moadim, it's as if he's violating all the Shabbatot. So what kind of implications is that giving us of Shabbos to the Moadim and the Moadim to Shabbos? It seems to imply that Shabbos is on this really high madrega, and the Moadim are also super significant. They're as if they're like Shabbos. Now, whenever you're making something a comparison, so we know it's never quite the same. It's a little bit less, but nonetheless, it has a lot of chashivus. So there's already now another question that comes down. The way it's referred to in the pasuk in particular is that it's called Mairechadesh. So that's interesting. Why Mairechadesh? That's not a particular thing that we do all the time if referring to the Moadim or referring to the Chagim. Maybe there would be a more fitting name or a more fitting phrase that could have been used instead. So Nasiv Shalom brings down, why is it called Mairechadesh? Why are they referred to as these holy sayings or holy ideas? It's the following notion. When it comes to the Chagim, when it comes to Shabbos in particular, which is the first of the list, a person who's trying to feel the Kedusha, the holiness that connects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he has to do one thing very simply. He has to be involved on Shabbos with Shabbos and be involved with Chag with Chag. He has to be in the right mindset. If you ever try to keep Shabbos or you try to keep the Chagim and your head is elsewhere, it's very hard to connect to that Kedusha properly. For example, if you're having a wonderful day, you're having a good Shabbos morning, you're having fun at Kiddush, and next thing you know, you bring up the idea of the Maple Leafs. They won, they lost. I'm not going to talk about particular practicalities right now, but it's kind of hard. It's hard to focus. I'm thinking about when the guy rocked. It's unfortunate. 7-3. It's horrible. How could I don't know. It's kind of depressing. It makes you sad. Or for myself, for being more of a Ranger fan, also, you're fighting for 3 triple overtime and you lose. You can't focus on Shabbos. Where do you feel the Kedusha that way? It's impossible. So what does a person have to do? He has to be attached to what is going on. That's what he needs to do. He needs to be focused. And what happens when you start to connect to the Kedusha? So this is from Masechet Yoma. He brings down Adam Mairechadesh atzmo milamata makdishino oto milamala. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that whoever is down here is trying to grasp up, he goes down and picks you up. Adam Mairechadesh atzmo mi'at makdishino oto harbe. You try just a little bit, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes you a lot. The idea of Kedusha has to start someplace. It has to start with something that's basic. I buy in. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. But you have to be there. You have to at least have the mindset. And it's not just enough to asetov, you also have to do sumeira. You also have to think to separate you. Very often we can get confused when it comes to Yanim of Shabbos and Yanim Chagim, and someone will ask you what you're doing. So you very often say, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. But that doesn't really describe or explain what Shabbos is or what the Yanim are. We say Pesach, what do you do? I can't eat leavened bread. That's not what Pesach's about. It's about the Gula. HaKadosh Baruch Hu redeemed us. He saved us. Brought us out of Mitzrayim. It's more. Shabbos is a special connection for us to bond. But if we only view from the perspective of, it's all negative, so we're off balance. But at the same time, if we say, it's only about getting closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so I love playing guitar Friday night. It gets me in the right zone. I remember very clearly, I think I was 15 years old, if I'm mistaken. I went to my cousin's bat mitzvah in LA. I still, to this day, have never heard a better guitarist on the Friday night davening since then. Wonderful Reform Shul is beautiful. So my cousins and I, we all had a beautiful davening by ourselves. We show up to be supportive of our cousin, and there's a person rocking out L'chadodi. It was beautiful. But the conception, there's a problem. There's the balance. There's not just Sumei Ra, and there's not just Asay Tov. There's the balance between the two of them. They have to unite. And in my mind, that already leads me to the next point. Where in the middle of the Moadim, you all of a sudden come to a section. You're starting to deal with, after Pesach, start dealing a little bit with the Omer, the Karban Omer, and then this following pasuk comes up, which is mind-boggling. It's really just confusing. It seems to be out of place. It says the following: "Uvekutzrechem et katzir atzechem lo techale pe'atzadcha bekutzrecha v'leket katzircha lo telaket la'ani v'laget azov otam ani Adonai Elohecha." When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not remove completely the corner of your field as you reap, and you shall not gather the gleanings of your harvest for the poor and for the prostrate. Shall you leave them? I am Hashem your God. The mitzvah of leket and peah come up right now. And honestly, there is no connection to, yes, you can say, we're talking about Ketzircha, when you're reaping your fields. So now, once you're doing that, by the way, we'll talk about this. But it has no inherent connection to actually the Chagim. Lifacho, by the Omer, I could say it's connected to Pesach, because when am I bringing the Karban Omer? On Pesach, the second day, Mairechadesh Shabbat. That makes sense. And then we also say that the entire time I'm counting the Omer, it's a Chol HaMoed between Pesach and Shavuot. You can make the connection. But Leket and Peah has nothing to do with that. It's a separate mitzvah entirely. It would not, of all times, plenty of times we talk about the land. If anyone is curious about how many times the Torah wants first to do the land, specifically Eretz Yisrael, and the Chashivas of Eretz Yisrael, numerous times. It could have put it anywhere. It did not have to go here. So here where I think the idea that Rashi also brings down. It's a beautiful comparison Rashi says for anyone who keeps the following mitzvah. This is what Rashi says. Why is this brought down here? Be'emter galim lamdecha. Whoever leaves over the corner of his field, the gleanings, for the poor person, properly, a person who does leket shechem peah properly, the way it's supposed to be done, it is as if he built the Beit HaMikdash and brought a karban on the mizbeach. Pretty intense comparison for mitzvah. I forgot some leftover crops. It's a pretty intense comparison for a mitzvah, again, about leaving food. Okay, tzedakah is important. Building the Beit HaMikdash? Bring a karban on the mizbeach? I don't know about you, I definitely would not have that. If I was making comparisons, that's my first jump to. I don't know what I would have compared it to, but that was definitely not my first guess. So what's the idea? What's going on over here? Specifically right now, when we're talking about going to the Beit HaMikdash, when we're specifically discussing the Chagim, where it's really about the family, and it's about me, myself, and I have to bring the Karban Pesach. Even though the Karban Pesach is really inclusive and it involves your neighbors, Beit, right? You're bringing that Karban not just for yourself, it's inclusive of other people. It's really about my obligation, what I have to do. When I go to bring the Shlosh Galim, I'm going because that's part of my personal responsibility, even if others are coming along with me. In the middle of the Moadim, in the middle of the section, we take a pause. We say, by the way, if you think the only focus right now of our Yiddishkeit, the only focus of our Torah right now is about you're bringing the Karbanos to the Beit HaMikdash, what happens? HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you, that's not the focus. Don't forget the Aniyim. Don't forget the poor people. Every time it refers to Simcha in the Torah, it refers to it by Karbanos that are being brought, not just by yourself, with the Gerim and the Ayatomim and the Amanot. You're bringing it with the widows, you're bringing it with the orphans, you're bringing it with the Levim, you're bringing it with people who don't necessarily have all that. Because true Simcha is not just about me, myself, and I, it's about expressing that with everyone. And in my mind, this I think takes me to the Tkufata, the time period that we're in right now. We're leaning towards Lag BaOmer, where unfortunately we see from Masechet Yevamot and two different locations, the idea that Rabbi Akiva Talmidim died either because lo nagu kavod zeh bazeh, or they died because of askara, which could be because they didn't have lo nagu kavod zeh bazeh. They weren't acting appropriately towards one another, and they got this disease that I can't say it properly in English, but essentially you're choking to death because of either smoke inhalation or just because there are problems with their lungs. That's the punishment they're getting. And right now, it makes a lot of sense, and specifically right when we're talking after Yom HaTzmaut, after Yom HaZikaron, we're leading up towards Yerushalayim, we're dealing with a time period where it's not just about me, myself, and I, it's really inclusive of the entire Am. The celebration of Yom HaTzmaut, Yom Yerushalayim, is that Am Yisrael has this home to a place to go. We have this opportunity that now that any Jew who wants to go home at any time in his life can do so. During COVID, if you wanted to travel, it was very difficult. Unless you were Israeli. You can go home, you're able to go back. Be able to do it. Amazing. Now, the idea of being Israeli is more of a technicality. But the practicality is that it's us saying, it's me raising a flag and saying, this is my home. This is the home that belongs to all of us. If you're a Jew from Ukraine, you're a Jew from Ethiopia, if you're a Jew from Taiwan, you're a Jew from America, it makes no difference where you're from, you are a Jew and this is your home. And what's the message right now specifically? If you're thinking right now the home is just for yourself, you're missing the point. Yom HaZikaron and specifically Yom HaShoah, those kind of days are remembering the klal of those who lost on behalf of the klal. The individuals who helped make the klal possible, who gave us this possibility. And then comes Yom HaTzimon, Yom Yerushalayim, which are celebrating the fact that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave not just me, myself, and I, someone who lived in Yerushalayim. It gave to all of us this opportunity to go to the Beit HaMikdash, or the Har Beit, B'ezrat Hashem will be the Beit HaMikdash. It gave us the opportunity to go to the Kotel. It gave us the opportunity to be in Yerushalayim to celebrate together. But the question we have to ask is, how often do we realize that or appreciate that? Mairechadesh, when we take these moments of small aspects of Kedusha, and we try to connect to it, what happens? Kadosh Baruch Hu is mashpia milamala. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, give me an inch, I'll give you a yard. So the question we have to ask ourselves is now, what can I do to tap into this Kedusha? What can I do, not just to tap into Kedusha for myself, but what can I do to tap into Kedusha to spread it around? When you ever hear on the news of a natural disaster that took place in Haiti, took place in this country, that country, took place in Florida, immediately you'll see on the news an Israeli flag and a group of the Chayalim showing up there to help, search people out from the rubble. Ukraine right now, massive first aid station, massive hospital station set up. Medina Yisrael. People are in help, they need help. We wave our flag. What are we doing? How are we being mashpia? And if we are thinking this way, B'ezrat Hashem, when we're talking about, in Rashi's example, of building a Beit HaMikdash and bringing the karbanos, hopefully it won't just be on a figurative level. B'ezrat Hashem will actually be on a very literal level. That through doing these things, B'ezrat Hashem will be zocha to be rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash, B'her B'yameinu, and be zocha to see this in our days. Everyone have a fantastic day. Shkach.